Another day, another great opportunity to hang out with our amazing In Soccer We Trust YouTube community. So thank you in advance for hitting the like and subscribe buttons. It means a lot to us. Also, we have a very special guest joining us today, former stud striker, one of our teammates on the U.S. men's national team, Eddie Johnson. We have a lot of questions for him. So let's get after it. Yes. What is up, everyone, and welcome to your new favorite podcast with a bunch of old U.S. men's national team players, Jimmy Conrad, Charlie Davies, and Heath Pierce. And because this is how we roll, we have yet another amazing guest joining us this week on the show, former U.S. men's national team striker, Eddie Johnson. And I can't wait to get his thoughts on a lot of things, but specifically who you'd like to see us start at the number 9 spot if the World Cup started tomorrow. But before we bring him on, I think we need to share our best Eddie Johnson story because we all played with him. And Charlie, as a former striker, and Eddie was a former striker, I'm coming to you first. Give me your best EJ story.
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's kind of two. So the first EJ story I have is him taking me under his wing. So going to Copa America with you, Jimmy, as well, and 2007, and I'm thinking, man.
Oh, that's cool. Don't include me in the story, Charlie.
He was there too, Charlie.
Yeah,
I don't remember him doing anything.
I didn't get to play until we were out.
He was watching Johnny Bornstein play.
Yeah, I know. I thought. By the way, I thought I'd get the tournament, but Johnny got to go Gold Cup straight to that and take all the games. But I played the last one when we were out. Sorry, Charlie.
Way to go, Johnny boy.
No, and I was just thinking, man, I get the opportunity to learn from the guy that I've been watching as a kid, in terms of how to score goals, how to adapt to the national team. And he took me right under his wing and he gave me his jersey, the one that he scored.
The early flex.
Yeah.
And you're wearing it right now for everybody that can't see it and listening to this. He's wearing the Copa America 2007 blue pinstripe, Eddie Johnson on the back, and it's autographed by Eddie.
Yes.
Like you just leveled up. That's like the ultimate flex.
And the ultimate EJ story is him setting the tone with bling bling. So he had to get like the blinged out watch, all the ice on the rings and the jewelry, and so he set the tone and set the bar high. Then Clint Dempsey, then I had to jump to Marcus Beasley, and then obviously once I got to that level, I was like, I have to get the bling too. So
this is what you do.
So he kind of led to me, getting some bling for the watches and the rings.
All right, I respect it. Heath, best EJ story.
Man, I got so many EJ stories. EJ and I go back to like the U14 national teams residency. 14 to 17 years old. I won't tell any of those stories just because like you're 14 to 17. Those people live and stay in that period. But I think it's not so much a story, but just my first time remembering EJ when we first got to residency at IMG. For those that didn't know, before there was academies, there was this IMG academy where all the youth national team players would go to play during a certain age group to train for a World Cup, but also simulate professional environments. It was part of this thing called Project 2010, where the U.S. was supposed to win the World Cup in 2010. Turns out that didn't happen, and it was a little bit ambitious. But we were one of the first nights there. They had this big indoor training center there, and what that we called the Dome. And we went in there one of the first days, and we got a football, and we were throwing a football around. And Eddie was running routes better than anybody I'd ever seen run routes in football. And then we went to the gym, right? This is like we're 15 years old. And we see this big yoked dude repping 225 pounds, right? And at this point, like if I could get 150, 160 on a bench press, I was happy. And Eddie was like, "Oh, that's not that much." And Eddie might not even remember the story.
Not that much. I don't think I've ever done.
And we were like, "No, dude. That's the double 45s. That's what everybody dreams of. The double 45s on each side of the barbell." And Eddie was like, "No, it's not that much." And Eddie was always down to be like, "Nah, that's not that tight." So then Eddie went straight up to the bench press and started repping out 225. We were kids, dude. We were kids, and we were like, "There's no way." And it was the first time that I realized, it wasn't the first time, but it was one of the many times that I realized that Eddie could have been a professional athlete in literally every sport. And I know we say that about people. I know we talk about Odell Beckham, but when you watch him kick a ball, you're like, bro, don't lie to us. Eddie could have done that at any sport and was one of the best pure athletes that I've ever seen in my entire life to this day.
I think you're just saying that too because he's coming on as a guest.
No.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so too.
But no, I agree with you. I've been around Eddie for club and country. He's been my teammate for a number of years, and I saw exactly what you're talking about. And I always felt a little jealous. I'm like, man, the games the game looks so easy for Eddie Johnson. Why is it so hard for me? And I think the reps for 225 pounds is a nice example of that. Now, my favorite story before we bring on the man, myth, and legend, Eddie Johnson, is that my first national team camp in January 2005. So I'm obviously super nervous, finally get called in after waiting patiently for many, many years. And Eddie had just come back from training with Manchester United. And at that point, Louis Saha was at United and took Eddie under his wing. And at that camp, now I played against Eddie for years in MLS, and I had seen obviously flashes of his potential, what he could be. That guy came back and I could not defend him. He just was another level coming out of that. And it was, I've never seen, not Landon, not Clint, nobody that DeMarcus, and there's no player I've ever played against that was harder to defend than those 3 weeks in January camp. Because if I tried to play him tight, he would just roll me and then ask for the ball up over the top. I'm not catching him. And then if I dropped off of him, he would just turn and grab it and then run at me full speed. And I wasn't good enough at that point. And as Heath likes to say, I was never good enough to actually do all the things.
You were by that point.
I got there eventually. But that 3 weeks, I saw the best that I've ever seen of Eddie Johnson. He was tremendous. And in some ways, I wish he hadn't hurt his toe. I think he got that turf toe that really kind of lingered for a long time as he tried to push back and get back in, maybe a little bit too soon, as people do with that. But I just wanted to give a shout out. He was the most unbelievable U.S. player I've ever seen. And I say that now after seeing all these other guys that are coming through. I guarantee you none of them were better than those 3 weeks of Eddie Johnson. Now, obviously, we saw flashes of it throughout the rest of his career, but I was always truly amazed. So let's bring the man on now, everybody. Eddie Johnson, everybody. 63 caps for the U.S. men's national team, 328 games at the club level, playing in MLS, England, and Greece before having to retire much earlier than I'm sure he would have preferred due to an unfortunate heart issue. Though I'm glad the doctors spotted it before it became too serious. It's Eddie Johnson! What's up, Eddie? How are you, man? Great to see you.
What's up, Jimmy? What's up, Heath? What up, Charlie?
What's going on?
Okay, so EJ, you heard these stories from us about you. Which one stands out for you? Anything you want to shed some light on or add any context to?
I mean, Jimmy, you put me in a rough spot, man, Jimmy. Yeah. You made me look good, Jimmy. You made me look good.
Well, maybe it was me that was making you look good.
You're a great salesman, man. You're a great salesman. I remember all of those stories, man. And I know those stories are true because when I can literally count on 2 hands on the friends that I've come across in this game, I'm talking to 3 of them right now. So all of them. Even in the dome, Heath. I remember that back in Bradenton. I remember that. I remember what Jimmy's saying. Charlie, I remember. One of our things, bringing Charlie under my wing was, trying to get more people to recognize soccer. And it was, if anything, we can try and change to bring more awareness to the game. If it was like starting to try and pretend like we were freaking basketball players and wear jewelry and like football players to bring more awareness to it. It was something that I've always wanted to do, and it's something that I'm doing right now. It's just trying to add more like swag to the culture of the sport,
So, no, and I appreciate that. That's part of your charm, and we love it. So, Eddie, I'm going to go first with the question. Obviously, as he said, you were capable of playing a lot of sports. So my first part of that is, why did you choose soccer? Second, based on your whole career, you're now teaching the game to kids that were at that same level or at that same age when you had to make that choice about dedicating your life to one particular sport so you could be great at it, which you did. So how did you know soccer? And now why are you so compelled to give back? Because you have clearly shown that you're a tremendous coach.
The first one, why did I choose soccer? Well, I didn't really play soccer because I loved it in the beginning, like Heath had mentioned, I was just so competitive and I loved playing all sports. And I found soccer very challenging in the beginning because growing up in America, especially in the inner cities, a lot of the things we do is, hand-eye coordination. So it's either throwing a football or shooting a basketball or picking up a baseball bat, whatever it is. So it was very good with my hands. But when it came to, having a ball at my foot, it made me uncomfortable. And it was challenging. And, we all know we're competitors. If anything becomes challenging, that inner competitiveness comes in and you keep working hard until you become good at it. So I think the will to wanting to become good at it and then seeing the how I was progressing when I was younger, when I started to play and learning all of these amazing things in the sport, it kind of drew me to the sport as well. And then I say, the crowd of people, it put me around versus growing up in the inner city. When I was playing basketball and football, the crowd was bad. My friends were doing bad things growing up. And then I'm not going to lie, soccer is a suburban sport. So those kids weren't doing bad things. And, my crowd changed. And then when my crowd changed, growing up with my single mom, she always told me, to surround yourself around like-minded people. And that's what kind of kept me within the game of soccer.
EJ, I got a question for you, because Charlie brought it up about introducing the bling. And I remember specifically we were at a hotel one time, and you had just, I don't know, it was probably $1,000 or a couple $1,000s in jeans that you had worn once, and you were like, bro, do you want them? And you gave them to me. And I remember wearing them for a while and being inspired by, because you were like, it's people will laugh at it now, but you were the first. You were the first. No, I mean, he had some. Man, I'm trying to think of what
True Religion.
True Religion.
It was with an R on the back.
Yeah, that was the R was the True Religions. Right or no?
No, there's another.
But brand. He had a brand that was something couture that he had given to me. But the point is that I'm trying to make is that, I mean, for everybody, for context sake, you were before anybody on the Ed Hardy game, the Odeje game, all the Rocket Republic. That's the one. Rocket Republic.
Yes.
Producer Lisa just gave us that. But you had this big polarizing personality, right? And I don't think the game was at a point that it was ready to receive somebody who had opinions. And now you're very opinionated on the philosophical side of the game for youth kids. Do you think this current crop of players, do you think that your approach, your attitude, your mentality, your competitiveness, your outspokenness would have been well received now than in previous generations? And do you think that we have a national team, I guess, that has these types of personalities? Because you always had that big personality.
That's a great question, Heath. And absolutely, man. I'm looking at the current team right now, and when I look at that team, I look at swag. I know you all follow Timothy Weah, and you see the way he dressed, and he's really big into fashion and jewelry, and I guess that's a part of today's game. The younger generation, even working with younger players myself, there's so much more advanced, there's so much more skilled and creative, and I just think it comes with the sport now, which is good, because we always talk about personality is huge, and I think we're at a point right now where soccer's grown a lot in this country, and with the success that the players are having in Europe, like Pulisic and Wes McKennie and Tyler Adams and Rena and Weah, they made the game a lot more appealing, and now they're American players that we can play in bigger clubs, and it's not like when I was growing up, it was more like you didn't have that opportunity, or if you were wearing jewelry, you're a prima donna, or if you're wearing jewelry and bling, you're too arrogant, But now, the players are doing the work on the field, and they're proving that with having a lot of success early, they can still perform and play at a high level, and it doesn't get in the way of their creativity on the field, and it's more acceptable now.
Well, since now is the perfect time to transition into the national team, since you brought it up. You and I see the game relatively in the same way, Eddie. We've always talked about players who should go, what players need to be successful at the next level, what players need to be successful at the international level. We're talking about the number 9 position. Both you and I once wore the 9 for the U.S. We know what it takes. I think we're both different types of players than your average 9. What does the U.S. need now? Who is the guy, do you think, that should be starting for the U.S. men's national team come Qatar in the World Cup?
I mean, it's tough because, like you said, the 9s are different than when we were. I always tell people, it's funny you say this, and no disrespect to the current players right now, they're all talented in their own ways. But when it comes to speed, being dynamic and flair, and putting yourself in situations where you can go at center backs 1v1 and use your skills. I feel like we lack that right now. But if it was up to me, and first game of the World Cup for me, and I said something earlier on with Heath when he mentioned about the most natural goal scorer that he's ever seen, and I kind of took offense to that.
Oh yeah, I did too. I think, but anybody that's seen the game,
but
knows that ain't true.
I was outspoken. I went to Heath right away. And I know it comes with you get a lot of backlash. But for me, I'd say the young guy. I'd say the young guy right now. I know he's over in Europe right now, and he's finding it hard to adapt right now, which is normal. And he's young, and he has a lot of talent, and he is a proven goal scorer already at the international level. I think. Do
you think Ricardo Pepi should be the 9 starting World Cup?
Say that again.
Ricardo Pepi.
Yes.
So
yes.
even if he gets like no burn, let's say going into the World Cup,
I just think that we can talk about a lot of similar stories like that where they're not playing, but you do well for you're not maybe playing club, but you do well for your national team coach, and the national team coach knows what you're capable of doing, so they always feel comfortable when you're out there. I feel like the boy has all the goods. He has all the goods. He does well. He's an opportunist. He makes the most of his opportunities. I think sometimes in some of those games we could have been a little more patient.
Now, Eddie, I'm going to jump in and say I like the Ricardo Pepi pick. I think that he does provide some dimensions.
Hello?
I think you there?
Yeah,
he drops it.
Hello?
We got you, Eddie. So he does drop into those spaces and figure out ways to bring other
Eddie,
people in the game.
You got us?
Eddie, you there? Oh man.
We hear you, Eddie.
Are you back, Ed? You there?
Hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, we lost Eddie Johnson there, but I do want to get into the conversation about Ricardo Pepi. You hear us, EJ? He's going in and out with the mute. This is our favorite part of the show, everybody, just so you know. In Soccer You Trust is presented by Technical Difficulties.
Lisa could take care of him.
Yeah, we'll figure that out in a second. But with regard to Ricardo Pepi, are you surprised, Heath, that was his selection?
A little bit when I think about, when and obviously we had a debate and a discussion about Ricardo Pepi when he scored, and there was things about his game that you and I have talked about, Jimmy, which is like, even when he's not scoring, he still tends to make players around him better. Now, I think we have an issue with getting him involved and getting any of our 9s involved. But when I think about one that I trust the most, I still think about Ricardo Pepi being the guy. Now, it's hard to think about 6 months from now, because I imagine a world in which Ricardo Pepi is in a better circumstance than he is now, which is not playing at all, not even coming off the bench on his team. But I'm not surprised with that, because I don't know, maybe Charlie feels differently, but I do see somebody who is impactful in every match that he plays, even if he's not scoring.
Yeah,
so
I do see that. My thing is, you can't go at this age for that long of a time not developing, because he's still young. It's if Eddie's in his late 20s, 30s, and he's not playing at his club, you know what you're gonna get. He's had that experience. He's done growing and maturing and understanding how to get the most out of matches. Ricardo Pepi is still growing. He hasn't had that experience yet. So he still needs the 6 months of playing time heading into a World Cup to make sure that he's fit and sharp before playing, because I don't think Gregg Berhalter will call on him if he's not playing. I think at this stage it's not the case. And to go on to Europe, I'm really interested to see what Eddie thinks about Jordan Pifuk, because the man scoring goals for fun, but I think he lacks the athleticism that you're talking about.
So Eddie, actually, before you jump in, and you can bring in Jordan Pifuk in your answer, but I wonder what you want to see from the number 9. Is it strictly running the channels to create space potentially between the midfield and back line for our wingers to get in there and do their thing? Or do you feel like we need somebody who was a little bit more, let's say, Brian McBride-esque, right? Just a big guy up top that can just bang with the center backs and then lay the ball off to our excellent wingers. Because it feels like what we really need to do is play to our strengths, because we have an incredible amount of talent in the winger spot and in our attacking mid number 10 spot as well.
No, Jimmy, you're right. That's for me, I think a combination of everything. Someone who has all the goods, good hold up play, like you said, that can run the channels and get isolated and be dangerous and pull center backs out of positions and create opportunities for themselves. But, just a goal scorer, like Heath was saying, a natural goal scorer, that has a combination of everything, that can, create goals on their own. I know a lot of those games were relying on, balls into the box, service, when we play against teams that are organized in the back and that are big center backs, those crosses aren't going to be as effective, but can we find someone that can, get on the half turn, face defenders, create space for themselves and get shots off. Dempsey wasn't the most dynamic either, but when he played up there, as the 9, he did a good job of dropping deep and getting turn and combining with the the other striking partner and scoring goals and being effective and unbalancing those center backs and open up spaces to play balls in behind to the wingers to cross balls in the box. I just think we need more variety in our 9. I just think right now it's just if and I'm not taking anything away from the player, because for me, when you say the 9, he's proven statistically to probably be the best we've ever had, Brian McBride. I feel like that's what we have, and it's time to change that 9.
Yeah, sure,
It looks and what it looks like.
Well, you did that, and then I did that.
Yeah, I did it. We did it, but they saw glimpses of it. It was little glimpses of it. But I just feel like the young boy has it, and then just give him more of an opportunity to play, and like you said, he's not playing in Europe right now, but he's still young and it just has so much upside. But for me, if I was picking a team, I just go off. I'm really big on like how players do for their coaches. He's Gregg Berhalter has given him a chance. He's done really, really well. He's found himself in a situation where he started out really, really slow. He's having a hard time adjusting. But I still feel like that doesn't take away. There's many situations from players around the world and national teams where things aren't going well for them in club, but the coach knows what they can do and trust them when out on the field. They still find a way to know how to perform and play in that system. And I feel like that's what the young boy does.
Eddie, let me ask you this. You went through a similar, while we're on Ricardo Pepi, you went through a similar trajectory where you get to Kansas City. You're in the national team. I think you scored like 8 goals in 4 games there.
It was 12 goals and 3 assists in 11 games. I was living it. I was there with him.
Yeah.
It was amazing. He was on fire.
But you had four in a game, I believe.
Oh, 4 in a game. Yeah, he did.
You had a big breakout into the national team, and then all eyes were on you, right? You became the answer to every problem in everybody's mind of like, we finally made it. We're finally this. We're finally that. You signed a new contract, probably one of the biggest ever at the time.
That's why I gave you those jeans. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't complaining about that, but you got all this hype on you, right? And then with that came this pressure. And so what is it that one you went through once you became a player that had just sort of quickly rose? We could all see the talent, but then all of a sudden it's been validated by the world around you. What's the pressure that comes with that? And how can you sort of apply that to what Ricardo Pepi's going through or other young players? Because the difference now, we're seeing these guys, talking about Timo Weah and a number of these guys, they're coming into the national team similar to the age that you did, but there's a large group of them coming in as teenagers on the younger side.
Jimmy mentioned it earlier. I don't think it was so much more pressure because when you're young, you have time to make mistakes and learn and grow. So I didn't really feel the pressure at the time. I think the hardest.
But I feel like, but Eddie, I feel like I can do that as a defender. I can learn. But as a striker, you both went through it. Like you're only, even if you're contributing, you're still going to be judged on goal output. So there's a different pressure, I think, for a striker than there is for other players on the field. All things considered.
Absolutely. Like I can miss an opportunity and still make up for it. You can make a mistake in the back and then, you cost your team, so that's why I said it's like from a striker's point, like when I was young and I was coming into the game, similar like Pepi, there wasn't any really pressure. That's why I was able to relax and be myself on the field and score goals without having all of the anxiety and the pressure and the expectations because no one expected, we had this, you know, the potential to do these things. But I think by being young, you know, and understanding that I'm young and understanding that, you know, it's like, you know, I'm riding the wave right now. Eventually I know this wave's going to crash, you know, but I'm still young, you know. It's all about being in the moment, and it's about rhythm, you know, and that's something I used to always tell myself. I got a good rhythm right now. You know, what is it that I'm doing? How, you know, to keep this rhythm, you know, and how to channel out everything else that's going on out there, so it doesn't get in the way of my creativity. But I think it was what happened to me was, and it didn't happen to him. It was, my injury is what happened to me. You know, my toe injury is what got me out of my rhythm, and a lot of people don't know that. Before the toe injury, I was on fire. Couldn't no one
Dude,
stop
fire.
me.
I was there. I saw it. Yes.
What happened, and when I started feeling the pressure, to your question is I'm having a nightmare right now. Was when I came back from the toe injury, I was putting too much pressure on myself to get back to the level of playing. I mean, the level of play that and sharpness that I was, and that's when I started feeling all the pressure, because I wasn't the same, you know, because I lost that rhythm.
EJ, when you look back at your time as a professional soccer player, what I always think about your potential. I always think, you know, there was those times where you think about what if this, what if that, and you know, I think about your potential. I think about my potential. You know, where that could have led us if we absolutely played to the best of our ability and made the difference. What would you change if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, and what would you work on, do you think, to make sure that you maximize that potential? And where do you think you'd be playing?
Well, you know, both of us we were all involved in the youth national team, and I just feel like a part of the reasons why our careers were like they are, and a lot of people don't, you know, they know it, but they don't speak about it. When you were young back then, you weren't pushed to go to Europe. Remember, Heath knows this. You know, when we were in residency, it was more the youth soccer federation was pushing us to go to MLS to help grow the league, when there was European opportunities there from playing in tournaments abroad, when we used to go on with these youth national teams. And that's what I would say is different now, and why these kids are getting a lot of more opportunities right now is because, you know, we were kind of like the sacrifices to build the league, where it was, we don't want you to go to Europe. We got a professional league here. You can develop here. So I think if the mentality was different back then, younger players coming up through the residency program, if we could have had more opportunities to go to Europe and develop like the rest of these young players are developing, you know, we could have saw what we're seeing now, the Pulisics, the Wes McKennies, the Gio Reynas, you know, all of these kids doing well in big clubs, you know. So if I can change anything, I wish I would have went to Benfica, honestly. When I had the chance to go to Benfica, I turned it down. And then I started negotiating with the MLS. I think Benfica would have been great for me from a developmental standpoint. Big club, young player. I would have got Champions League experience. They do well in Europe, and when the players do well from there, they go on to other bigger clubs. And I think if when I go back and look at it, I wish I would have made that jump. But
what was your hesitation?
Honestly, I was comfortable. I was comfortable in MLS. Like I said, I was on fire. I was having great money thrown at me, and I was looking at really like lifestyle, being close to family and being able to help family and still have a normal life and not having to learn another language. Like I said, my mentality was different. It wasn't like how I'm preaching to the younger kids right now. When I did finally go over to Europe, and the things that I hadn't developed, which didn't allow me to be successful when I was over in Europe. I wish I would have went at a younger age. That would have prepared me better to make that jump from like a Benfica to then go to England. And I just feel like I said, the mentality wasn't there. I didn't really have a real hunger to go play in Europe because I was doing really, really well in America and making really, really good money.
So, Eddie, I would jump in because I was with you when you made the move to Fulham. You left Kansas City to go, and you were on fire. And I remember in the locker room to help you refine that rhythm, to kind of bring back an answer you mentioned before. You would watch a lot of video of you scoring goals to kind of like get back into that mindset. Like, this is how it feels. I want to get that feeling again. And I thought it was really powerful, the visualization of that. And so I just want to make sure everybody knew the little things that Eddie was doing to have success. And that was seeing and watching him have success on the field. And I think that's really important for young players to think about as well. But when you left to go to Europe, I wonder, because I'm sure you're encouraging some of your young players, if they're ready to go and they have the talent, they should go do it, which I think is important because you get out of your comfort zone. Right. But for you, you ended up going, but you bounced around a little bit. Like, you went to Fulham, but you went on loan a few times. You went down to Greece. And I think what you learn, and maybe you can correct me here if I'm wrong, and all of you guys played in Europe, and I had a short cup of coffee over there as well with like Poznan in Poland. But when you're over at MLS and you're there, as you say, Eddie, they are relying on you to build the league. They're going to cater to you in your emotions. They want to make sure you're feeling good and all that stuff. And then when you go over to Europe, they just don't care about your feelings. You're either good or you're not. And if you're not good consistently, well, then you have to wait your turn until you get another opportunity to be good again. And I think that's a really harsh thing to learn, you know, at any age, if you haven't been in that environment before. But I think it does ultimately make you tougher. I think you came back from that experience a lot tougher. Is there anything in there? Because you had a chance to train with Manchester United before, as I said at the beginning. You know, how pivotal was that advice? I remember you coming back going, Louis Saha is the man. You know, he had so much great insight for me about how to play the position to be better at it. And that's when you came back and you were still on fire. You were already on fire going into that, but coming out of that, you were also on fire.
Yeah, I think too. You know, I also went to Europe in the winter, right? Transfer window.
Right.
So coming off an off season in the MLS, where I was sitting around for freaking 2 months. You know, all of November. Because we didn't make I don't know if we made the playoffs, but all of November, all of December, January camp, then boom, I get a call from Clint Dempsey, like 2 days into the January camp. And he was basically just telling me, you know, hey, Roy Hodgson really likes you. Wanted to know if you would be interested coming into Fulham. You know, Clint was, you know, was the first one to call me. And then right after Clint called me, boom, Rich called me like Motskin right after that. EJ, like, honestly, you're going to have to get on a plane later on tonight. I'm like, a plane later on tonight? It's like, yeah, like, you know, Fulham, Premiership. I had already turned down Derby County, then go to Benfica. And, you know, Rich has been really good about, if you're doing the work on the field, the opportunities that come, and at a certain point, certain opportunities you got to take, you know, that can help further your development and all that stuff. He's always given me great advice in my career, and has never steered me wrong. And so I was like, you know what, he's right. So boom, 2 days into the camp, boom, I'm trained that morning with the national team. I'm on a plane going to London Heathrow the next day, and when I got there, it was just like it was just hard to catch up. Like, they were halfway through the season. I wasn't fit. I wasn't sharp. You know, they had me doing all of this extra training and all of this fitness and stuff. And then, you know, we survive. We stay up in the Premiership, and you know, they loan me out the next year to Cardiff City. And you know, he talked about it earlier. You know, being a young player and dealing with all of that expectations and standards over there, it's another type of pressure. You know, like you said, if you're not good, you're not good. You know, and money's not an issue. If they spend money on you, if you don't perform, they'll find the next, you know, player. And so that next season, when they loaned me out, it was kind of like a slap in the face. You know, basically saying they don't feel like I'm ready right now, so we're gonna loan you out for a season-long loan to Cardiff City. And so when I went to Cardiff City, I found myself in the championship, but I was there with some really good strikers. Michael Chopra, I don't know if you all remember those names. Mm-hmm. Jay Bothroyd, and then Ross McCormick. Ross McCormick came from the Scottish League. And in that season when we were there, he scored freaking 30-some goals in the championship. It's like, I felt like I never really got a real good shot of getting a chance in Europe because of the expectations and how low we were on the table and the pressure to stay up in the Premiership. And you know, when you get the opportunity, you all know Heath and Charlie playing over there, you get it, you don't take it, you know, there's really no second chance. They already, you know, gave you the shirt and you don't take it. They're looking for the next, you know, player. You're hoping for injuries along the way to try and get another sniff, but at that point, it was more thinking about, other opportunities on how I can still, get games and, stay in Europe as long as possible. And then when the Carter City opportunity came, I went, but it was there. It was challenging too as well. For me, like I said, I'm working with the younger generation. There was a lot of tools and attributes that I hadn't developed yet. And like in America, you said, Jimmy, they more cater to younger players over there where they don't. In America, they're more patient. Over there, they're not patient, and there's a lot of pressure. And, I just think that if I got a better chance, I can go back and say I could have, done better. But in the midst of all of that, when I was over there, all of the experiences that I learned, good and bad, I'm able to bring it back and now give it to the younger generation over here in America. And that's what I'm doing. You mentioned environment, a demanding environment, which is something that it wasn't growing up in the MLS at 17, 18, 19. It wasn't really demanding, but over in Europe, I'm looking and there's, 16-year-olds coming up, strikers training with the first team, and better than, have certain attributes that were better than me already at 16, 17. And so you look at what that, those environments were like and why those players were developing like that. And so the whole experience of playing over there, maybe it didn't work for me as a player, but it's put me in a position right now that with what I'm doing with the younger environment, you got these 8, 9, 10 years old where, I've created a real serious and demanding environment, and you're able to see the fruits of their labor by, creating environments like that. What these kids are doing now at a young age, where, that, I couldn't even do when I was a pro, as far as their technique and how they see the game and how they understand the game. So to the critics, it probably didn't go well for me, but it really put me in a good position where I am right now to be able to keep growing the game and giving back to the game everything the game gave me.
I love that. And I'm dying at the comments that I'm seeing from over here with massacre in the forest. And I do have a wine cellar.
Hey, Eddie, I got a question for you on that note. You've obviously, I've been watching your journey as a coach. You've been outspoken against MLS, US soccer, things that you don't agree with, right? And I guess, what is it you hope to achieve? You've got a lot of kids in environments, and one of the things that I read a lot about is that, these kids haven't been in clubs. They haven't been playing matches. They've been in the lab, right? They've been learning the fundamentals. They've been learning the education of the sport. You also have a son that's gone back and forth between football and soccer, and you're going through that journey as well. What is it that you're seeing in terms of goal, your goal that you're trying to achieve, the specialization of single sport and that sort of thing? Sort of what's your end game with all this? Because it could have been easy for you to just sort of be like, I made my money, I'm good. I could sit and watch the TV, and I can
bench press 225 anytime I want, suckers.
Or lie to a lot of the parents, like a lot of these trainers do and stuff, and say their kids are getting better to put myself in a better position financially. But that's something I can't do. I've always been a hard worker. I've always been a big believer on everything is earned, not given. And, nothing was given to me. So why would I teach the kids that it's going to be easy for them? My end goal is, when I retired and I resided back in Orlando, I was trying to figure out how can I stay within the game. I started talking to Rich, and I was, kind of coming up with, different ideas on, what it was that I like about soccer, or where can I see myself, whether it was broadcasting, whether it was being an ambassador for the game and going around and, scouting, young talent for US soccer, whatever it was, I wanted to still be within the game. But I knew once I stayed within the game, I wanted to do it my way. I didn't want to do it nobody else's way. I didn't want nobody to always be telling me what to do. It was the first time in my life I've been in a position to do it how I wanted to do it. And what I realized just watching, being a young kid growing up playing soccer in this country, and then just, after retiring and coming back and watching youth soccer, I just feel like there's not, like, kids don't get enough touches on the ball. And in a team format setting, these young kids, let's just say best case scenario, they're training 4 days a week, an hour and a half a day, 4 times a week. That's what, 6 hours of work. Let's say 6 hours of work.
That's in a team environment too, though, right? So they're not necessarily touching the ball. Those
exactly.
6 hours.
So
yeah.
in a team environment where everything is team oriented, where how we're going to play. So not really a lot of positional specific work. And if it is positional specific work, it's a lot of stopping and walking through, And so what I realized, and remember, this was all like a test, is where I know you all see him, and I'm very outspoken about him. Is Raylon, the little kid Raylon that I train, who is 10 years old right now, and for me, the best 10-year-old in this country. And I say that humbly, like this kid, and you all will see him one day. And I tell everyone, anyone in the soccer world right now, from MLS standpoint, U.S. soccer, like this kid is like the Neymar, American Neymar, and he is like a true testament to what it is that I've been doing down here with the younger generation. He's been consistently with me for the last 4.5 years, and what we did is we say no club, because when his parents came to me, they said, clubs don't allow him to dribble. He loves dribbling. If he dribbles too much, the coach always takes him off the field and sit him down. And we don't want our son to lose his love for the game, and so I said, you know what, and after I started doing all of my studying and stuff when it comes to player development, and at what age certain kids should be focusing on certain skill sets and attributes they should be developing at certain ages, and between the ages of 8 to 12, it's the foundation, where it's really important that the attributes, their dribbling ability, their comfortability on the ball, their first touch, how they see the game, their ability to think for oneself and think for players around them, how to create an environment around there to bring those attributes to life. And what I realized with him is, the more touches on the ball, the more natural these skill sets become. And so, when I started working with him and seeing the progression that he was making, we started to draw a lot of more attention to younger kids his age, not only in Florida, but around the country, that would literally come in and fly in and want to work, with me. And, see what this environment was about and why it's so real and why this kid's developing this way. It's like anything. It's muscle memory,
How Eddie, how close is he to Freddie Adu? So like if we were better than Freddie in his prime when he was a young player. He's better.
What position? What's he gonna be? What would you position him
as? 10. He's gonna be a 10.
He's a 10, and he's better than Freddie Adu when Freddie was at his prime as a 14-year-old.
And I love Freddie. Like,
yes, I know. I know.
Ask anybody that has seen this kid, like, this kid is the real deal, and how he's developed, I've been able to speak upon. This is what player development should like. Kids shouldn't, for me, be playing club soccer. It should be more about developing skill sets. And once they start getting to a certain age, and I say 11, 12, from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, then that's when you can start teaching them, how to play in a system and the tactical aspect of the game and how to see the game and how to play the game. But up until then, it should just be development, 3v3 tournaments.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you think
5v5 tournaments? Yeah. But injecting that confidence into them, and the only way to inject that confidence and for those skills to become natural is more repetitions on the ball, where club don't allow that.
I think a lot of parents that I've talked to that have seen your tapes and how you're coaching, I think the one thing that comes to mind is, can you turn any young kid that has maybe not played the game into the next Raylon? Or did Raylon come with skill? He had been probably, if you've been working with him for 4 years as a 6-year-old, was he the best 6-year-old you had already seen? You said, okay, now I can build off of that. Or did he come in and you're like, oh, he's an athletic kid, he likes the game, but now I can take him to a whole nother level? So parents know, hey, EJ can turn my kid who's just learning into like a Division I college player. Like, I can put him on that track? Or is it he has to have shown a little bit more than your average 6-year-old?
Now I can do both.
Okay.
I can take a good kid coming in, good foundation, and make him great.
That's the most EJ answer ever.
I love it. I love it.
I can do both.
He's a real coach. He can work with anybody.
and make them great. A part of that though too also revolves around the individual, their mentality, being young, teaching them, that this is the type of mentality you're going to have if this is what you're pursuing and you're chasing, right? This got to be a lot of sacrificing time away from other things and dedicating it to your craft. And, that's one of the first things I evaluate in a kid when I'm working with the kid. Are you here because you want to be here or because your parents want you to be here? And what do you want to get out of the game? Raylan was already at a good space from a coordination standpoint. Like, so his dad was a football player and played college and football. So his dad had already exposed him to like ladders and all of that stuff. So his coordination was really good. His balance was good.
Yeah.
You want to hear a funny story? Who Rayline? This is funny, Jimmy. You're gonna love this one. So Rayline's who inspired Rayline, apart from being a Neymar fan, his other inspiration other
Jimmy
than
Conrad.
Neymar.
Oh my God, I'd fall over right now if that was my
Jimmy. Will Johnson from Kansas City.
Will John.
So Will John has this YouTube thing, right?
Yeah, right.
And he's teaching kids how to do all of these skills.
Wow.
So Rayline used to watch Will John and learn how to do skills.
Gosh.
So if you look at the progression of him in the beginning, he can do the skills, but it was always like falling down and stuff,
right.
Balance wasn't good.
Just like Will John. I think he always fell down.
But he was
at Will John, by the way. I apologize.
But he was at a good space, and it was easy for me to fine tune other things that he was deficient in, and give those areas more attention until he became more stable and better balance and better control of the ball. And then that's a good point. In the beginning, I was only targeting kids that already had a good foundation because it was all new to me. And so as I started getting a feel for it, and the players were actually teaching me as I was going, and I was learning through the players because every player needs have other needs and wants. And so when I started working with players and players were getting better, that I already got a foundation. I said, the real test for me is going to be, taking a player that's not good, not a good foundation, new to the game, but love the game. And then how can you make that kid a real player? And that's when I realized this was my calling and why I love it so much. And why, I think it's important, that we all talk about it and you all are making a difference from outside of the field. But the more players that we can get that have played the game, like in the rest of the world, you look at these kids at these academies, those coaches have played for either that club or played at a professional level. The more players that we can get that have played at a high level back working with these kids at the grassroots, the more Clint Dempsey's you'll see, Charlie Davis you'll see,
Eddie
Landon Donovan you'll see, Jimmy Conrad's, and he because but the talent is there. It's just about creating the right environment and then patience, man. It's a patient thing, man. You see all of these grays from these little kids.
Yeah, I'm shocked at seeing the gray in your beard. Yeah. I'm like, when you popped up on the screen, I said, this stress is real.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get no Beijing either, man. I call it seasoning.
EJ, you touched on it. You touched on it a little bit as far as the growth. As you're teaching, you're also learning from these kids. How is it as a father to teach your kid who's been in and out of the game, but all of a sudden it feels like things clicked, like he sees, oh man, I can be good at this sport. But you're also, you want your son to be the best. You want your blood to be the best, but you're teaching Raylan, who's the best 10-year-old in the world, right? It feels like. How do you navigate the competitive nature that you have in yourself and that you're trying to instill in your son to be the best while continuing, to push Raylan and seeing how his greatness is evolving and trying to make sure that your son's trying to basically follow your footsteps and be a professional soccer player and be playing Champions League one day?
Right. That's a good question. Well, I never, like, my mom never forced me to play any sport. You know, if I wanted to play a sport, she signed me up for it. Same thing with my son. You know, I can introduce him to the game. Of soccer. I can introduce him to basketball, football, but I'm going to support him in whatever decision he wants to make, or whatever sport he wants to play. And when I did introduce him to soccer, he liked it, but he didn't love it enough to want me to train him. He just wanted to go and, you know, like every young kid, and just scrimmage and play and score goals. And, you know, that's what he did, you know, and then the hope of it was that he was going to develop some love and passion for the game once we had him in like these recreational leagues when he was little. You know, that something will spark him and you know, push him to want more and get more out of the game and play at a high level like me one day. And I never really saw that, you know, within him. And, you know, maybe it can be because I'm divorced and he was living in California and I'm in Florida. And I'm not there every day. But the pandemic, when the whole pandemic started, you know, my ex-wife allowed me to have him for about 8 months. And so we come to train every day, and I'd be on the field with the kids that are dedicated, that I mentor, and then he'd be on a complete opposite field, going back and forth from throwing a football with Raylon's dad or shooting at Raylon's dad in the goal. And I said to him one day, I said, you don't want to just try to train? He would never let me train, and would cry if I trained him. I go, you don't want me to train you? He goes, no. And then one day he came and goes, you know what, I want to train. And believe it or not, deep down inside, I think it's the relationship that I build with Raylon that has inspired him to want to play the sport. And with the success and the growth of Raylon and how he's progressing, has made him want to, you know, play the sport. And then when he started training, he started seeing the results really quick. You know, he catches on anything. You're talking about me, an athlete? This boy is an athlete. He can play any sport. He's faster than me when I was younger. He's more explosive than me. He's a multi-sport player. And so when he started seeing how quickly he was progressing, he started to fall more and more in love with the sport. And then in 8 months, what I did with this kid, I was like, wow. You know, and then the hard thing was when everything opened back up, was keeping him here in Florida. You know, His mom wanted him back in California. And so me being here in Florida and having a lot of commitments to Florida put me in a tough space. But, you know, like every father, you know, and you know, our job is to give our kids the best opportunities and put them in the right environments possible. And when it comes to like soccer in America, you know, I hate to say it, you know, Keith, but California, you know, the West Coast has has a strong player pool of players and proven players where they produce good players. And so I did a bunch of research and put him around some of the best trainers so he can continue to develop and grow and keep working. And the time he spends with me, we work. But at some point, try and get him down here full time and convince the mom. And how I've been trying to do that is, by keep showing her the amount of kids that keep moving from different states to come down here to Florida for me to develop them. So I think, once he realized, the work that has to be put in order to be good at it, and he saw how in a quick time he was able to become really, really good. And like I said, with the success that Raylons have, they're like brothers. Like they literally talk to each other every day on the phone. They're like two peas in a pod. And so, I found that and then me, Eddie's his dad, so, he's got the confidence like me,
of course. That's not going anywhere.
He's freaking, cocky like me. And he talks smack just like me, and he backs it up, man. He's like a spitting image of me, but like a better looking version of me with nice hair. But I just think that competitive nature is in him, man. He sees the clips. He was young when pretty young when I retired. Didn't really get a chance to, remember my career. But, these kids are so smart. They're on YouTube and stuff. And I think when he goes back and he look at highlights, and seeing me score goals, that drives him to as well. And he tells me all the time, he's like, man, I'll be way better than you, man. I was like, all right.
That means you're doing a good job. If he thinks that he's going to be better than you, you're doing exactly the right thing.
All right, man. I'm saying, you sure you're ready to, walk down that road? You sure you probably don't want to play football? You don't want them to use nothing against you because you're Eddie Johnson's son,
Yeah, right.
I'll be telling him, boy, you you're gonna have to be 10 times better.
Sounds like he's going to, and I feel like your end game, Eddie, is that you want your son and Raylon to be driving the U.S. men's national team to World Cup glory in 2032 or 2036 or whatever. And I think you could retire a happy man if that happens. So we definitely wish you the best, and obviously everything that you're doing to grow the game. Now we have one last question before we let you go, and again, we appreciate your time, Mr. Eddie Johnson. What is your best or favorite jersey swap that you had in your career? Somebody that you really admired that you got their jersey. Don't say Charlie Davies, because then his ego is going to blow up.
Hey, I will say mine would have been Robinho till Eddie ran on the field and took it in Chicago.
Took it, and then it got stolen.
No way.
Yeah. So I swapped, and then it didn't get it, and then I, you know how you give it to whoever the wash to the kid. I never got it.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Hey, you want to talk about Eddie being fast? I never saw Eddie fly off from the bench to Robinho quicker in my life to get that shirt.
But Charlie knows. Charlie knows those are our players growing up, man. Robinho, R9. Come on, man. Like, the swag. But my favorite jersey swap was this. It was bittersweet because I did it at halftime, and I want to see if y'all remember, Charlie and all of you. I did it at halftime, and I got chewed out after the game. So it was Carlos Tevez.
Yeah, I watched it. Oh, I watched it.
Carlos Tevez. We're getting killed in Copa America by Argentina at halftime. You remember I scored the PK.
Yeah.
And then I did a jersey swap at
outside,
halftime.
like outside on the field.
On the field, a jersey swap.
I mean,
classic Eddie Johnson, huh? Classic Eddie Johnson.
Well, you also got a coach that will not. Bob Bradley will not be okay with that.
That's what I'm saying, bro. But I was super just zoned out. But it's funny because Carlos Tevez and we met before at the U17 level. We played in Heath. You remember?
In Italy. Yeah.
In the Italy tournament, and we played, and we can speak. That was probably the best kid I've ever seen.
He played futsal. His foot was on top of the ball all the time,
the
rolling,
entire time.
Rolling.
He couldn't get insane. He walked through our whole entire team. He scored 3 goals at halftime. And they took him out, and we almost came back and we lost. Ended up losing 3-2, but they took him out. Thank God they took him out. This guy was unbelievable. And when I was walking off the field, he remembered me from that youth game. His English was perfect. And he said, Johnson, and we talked for a little bit. And remember, Italy, when tournament. And I go, holy, crap, this guy, remember me, man. Something I must have did in that game, or the way I played, real recognize real. And so when I go back and I tell all of the kids that, I was like, normally I'm like he said, if I see somebody that I really admire, I'm freaking going to run to him. But this is one of those things. I was super emotional. We were losing. A lot of us were being evaluated by Bob Bradley on that team, and it was one of the
stressful. It was stressful.
The second team. It wasn't the starting team, and we were trying to make an impression, and we were getting our butts kicked. And then when he wanted to swap jerseys, I swapped. And then after the game, you remember when Bob Bradley was giving it to all of us, he mentioned something about me swapping the jersey and Eddie swapping jerseys, and we're getting our, So that was probably my most.
That's a memorable one, though. That's a memorable one.
Hey, that team was an all-star team. So I mean,
no, seriously.
Yeah. Maybe one of the best national teams we've ever played against. They were
easily
for me the best. I tell everybody, for me, the best national team I've ever played against.
Well, Eddie Johnson, thank you so much for your time. Continued success in your second career as being an excellent trainer of the next generation. We look forward to your players really inspiring our national team moving forward. You are a man, a myth, and a legend. It was awesome to be your teammate, play against you, and I'm excited you're doing well post-career.
Boys, thank you so much, man. Good to see y'all's faces, man. Miss you all. When you're in Orlando, y'all got to come check these kids out, man. Honestly, if you're here, team game, come check the kids out, man. I'm telling you, you'd be really, really, really proud of these kids, man. The next generation is, in good hands.
Now, Eddie, where can everybody find you on social media so they can see all these clips?
Well, I just work off my Instagram, so Eddie_Johnson7.
There it is, everybody. Make sure you drop him a follow on Instagram. Eddie Johnson, Man, myth, legend. Thank you so much, Eddie. All right, everybody, we're going to take our first and only break. And when we come back, it'll be a very quick summation of what we just heard from the great Eddie Johnson. Do not go anywhere.
This season, I've only invited an elite group of competitors. This will be your biggest competition yet.
You don't come to a challenge and not be ready to win.
This is the most cutthroat game.
Gone are the days of men running the game.
Only shooting stars break the mold.
The Challenge All-Stars, now streaming exclusively on Paramount+.
Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Hollywood Heath Pierce and Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies. We just had our former teammate with the U.S. Men's National Team, Eddie Johnson, on. And that's what we do here on the show. We get you great guests week in and week out. Excited to have him. Charlie, I'm coming to you first as our resident striker on the show. Anything stand out for you with that Eddie Johnson interview? You had a lot to say in a lot of different areas.
A lot to say. Man, I just love what he's doing for the sport, just developing these young kids. And I love that he said, yeah, at first I was taking the best young players and trying to develop them and put them on a fast track. But now it's any player. I'm trying to walk them through how to love the sport, how to appreciate the sport, and then how to grow. And so that for me is really cool what EJ's doing.
And Heath, I really like the positional awareness stuff that he's talking about, because when I'm out here coaching, or if I'm, let's say, observing coaches that are doing their thing with teams, you can see a lot of the players of varying ages lack any kind of positional or situational awareness of what they should be doing and what kind of decisions they should be making. And it's not being really reinforced one way or the other. And that obviously bums us out, because I think we can all see that there's so much talent here that maybe isn't being nurtured in the right way.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, just his perspective on the game, and more so his. You guys know Eddie at times had great attitude. Sometimes he had a bad attitude. Sometimes he had a misunderstood attitude, and he's now harnessed all of that into making the next generation better, which I find, one of the stories I wanted to tell. I'll be quick with it. I went into Eddie Johnson's room on a camp, and him and Clint Dempsey were roommates, and they were about to fist fight over somebody not returning gear or something. The most arbitrary fight ever, and they were almost to the point of blows. And I remember stepping in there being like, and I stepped in the middle. I was like, guys, stop fighting. We don't. And they were just like, bro, stay out of this. And they just went after each other, and it was on and on, hours. They were in each other's faces after lunch, after dinner, still fighting. And I remember thinking about, like, these are really two big personalities, and they're roommates, and they're like best friends. And I was, and as I see in the world in which they've retired, and I see the passion and the commitment they have to everything they're going to do, they have gotten to a point, personality-wise, love them or hate them, famous or infamous, where they are going to be themselves. And I think that is a sign, and the first generation we've got it, of players that are going to be themselves. Yeah, you have others, personalities and caricatures of generations past on TV and stuff like that, but they are going to be themselves, like them or hate them. And I think that's a huge part of our growth for soccer in the U.S., because he's got conviction in everything that he does, and he's not doing what he thinks is the right thing that parents want him to do, or saying what he feels is the right thing in the media. He's being himself, and I think that pool of people that are willing to be that bold are going to transform the game in the way that we want it to, from being this suburban game where we're making a bunch of false promises to kids and parents and promising their kids are going to be great, to something much more tangible where we're actually developing people, developing characters. And it's just, it's just a really cool thing to see come to life, if, for all of us, especially if you've known him for as long as we have.
Well, that's what I was going to jump in and say, that because we've known him for many, many years, this is the first time I feel like I've seen him at peace. Usually there was always something, it felt like, at least, tearing him apart on the inside. Whether, I didn't want to get into this because I didn't want to make it too sentimental, but I know that when he signed that big contract in MLS, certain people in his life were coming out of the woodwork who weren't there for him, that he was counting on to be there for him, and they weren't until the money showed up. And that's got to mess with you. You're 19, 20, 21, you make $1 million contract, and all of a sudden somebody or many people come out of the woodwork are now looking for handouts, or all of a sudden your best buddy, and you're like, wait, what? And so I know he was conflicted a lot for a good portion of his career, and maybe in that trust department. And now I feel like he's at peace because, to your point, Heath, and the things that you've been saying too, Charlie, he knows who he wants to be and what he wants to do. And now he's staying true to himself without having to apologize or have to be anybody he's not. And I think that's fantastic, not only for the game itself and the players he's developing, but for Eddie Johnson as a human being. And I'm really proud of him. I mean, I never thought this is the field he would get into. I didn't know what he was going to do. I mean, I think when we're playing, you kind of look around the room and the locker room like, I wonder what that guy's going to be, when he's done. And I wonder if is he going to coach? He's going to go front office? Is he just going to disappear and be like a real estate guy? Like, you just don't know.
Well, to your point, Jimmy, most people, when you play, you never think about what comes next, because the goal has always been, have a long, successful career and retire, and then you don't have to work. But I think now people are understanding your career ends a lot sooner than you think, and you have much more life to live after you're done playing. And that even if you made all the money in the world, you still need purpose. You still need to get up and do something. And so now you're starting to see more people take ownership in clubs, get involved in sporting director, and it's not just relying on coaching. Unless that's your passion and you want to be doing more hours than you did as a player in the locker room. But now people are saying, there's other options, and starting to think about other options. So I'm happy to see that he's found something that he's really passionate about and good at.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm excited to see this Raylon kid and his own son, to see how far they go. It's one of those hoop dreams type situations where you got a bunch of talented kids, and due to some circumstances that are usually outside of their control, and how it impacts them and how they handle that adversity, Heath.
Well, what he said was, what I found interesting on that was, he was like, this is a test. And I think that's a really important word to use, because you don't know if you're doing right by the kid by making him train in a single sport all the time forever, right? Raylon could be the example of somebody who burns out by 17. He could, right?
You're right.
But he could become the example of somebody that isn't for everyone, but is the right mentality, the right character, the right approach to the game. You got to be willing to want to train. You got to be willing to want to work hard. And that is not 100%. Everyone. Jimmy, you work with kids. I do it to a small degree, but you work with them enough to know that, like, wow. And we've all played with somebody where you go, that's the best player I've ever seen, but they're not going to be shit, because they don't have the right mentality. They're not going to work for it. They know they've got what they've got, and it's good enough for them. And so the test of that, I think, is going to be really interesting, and it's going to come with a lot more of like the mental as much as the physical, in terms of how we look back at this Raylon kid, because of how good he is. And what type of, mentality he has, what his temperament is, what his support system, health, all those things. As he's 10, right? At 13, 14, when he can't do that.
He said he's better than Freddie Adu. He said he's better than Freddie Adu.
I know, that's a bold shout. Also, there's other factors too, like girls. There's all these different types of things that are coming your way as you start to get older that distract you from having that singular focus. And that's very difficult to maintain. They're gonna go through that dip of, oh, maybe I don't really like soccer anymore. I hate this sport. I don't, you know what I mean? It's all part of the process. And it's just a matter of whether they can fight through that. And as you mentioned, Heath, we all know plenty of players that couldn't fight through that I knew a guy, unbelievable. One of the best young players I've ever seen. And he got a girl pregnant at 16. And that was that. Like, that was, and so you have that minefield to manage as well as you're a young adult or becoming a young adult. And this is a conversation I think we have to save for another podcast. So we're done right now. In Soccer We Trust is coming to an end today. I feel like we really got to dedicate more time and space for that kind of theme, or those themes alone. So on behalf of producer Lisa Roman, make sure you check out her podcast, The Attacking Third, also part of the CBS Sports family, and Hollywood Heath Pierce, and Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies. I'm Jimmy Conrad saying thank you for listening. Thank you for hitting like and subscribe. Thank you for being a part of the community. And we will see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, or catch us on In Soccer We Trust, anywhere you get your podcast. We'll see you later.